It's Deep Focus, Monday, May 13th, 2024. My guest, Gary Lucas, on the topic of the inestimable Rahsaan Roland Kirk. This is part 2 of 3. You might want to go back and start with part 1 if you haven't heard it. But otherwise, let's get into it. I'm just thinking in relation to us sitting here listening to Rahsaan Roland Kirk. Do you set out to go beyond? Are you just...
No, I just think it's kind of a result of a mercurial nature. I am a double Gemini. And ruled by the planet Mercury, if you believe in this. I think it's probably a lot of bullshit myself. Astrology, but anyway. I don't know. I just always had a very eclectic listening habit. Going back to growing up, like I spent countless hours in a rocking chair before I could even write my name, listening to what was called Top 40 Top 40 radio of the day. This is the late 50s. We're talking about when I was a little shaver. And I just had ears for any kind of music that had an expressive quality. I love classical music, for instance, but it was basically music that would take me on trips. Peter and the Wolf, I thought was like one of the best things I'd ever heard. It's still passages in this bring me to tears. And as a guitarist, I found that there's something about bending of 6 strings or 12 strings, which I got into later on, that vibrates something internally, in my soul, in my sensibility. Because, I've thought a lot about it, I think because it resembles human speech, which is why I always like bluesy playing of any sort, where people are hitting that interstice between a white and a black note on a piano, let's say. These quarter tones, that you can produce also by slight bending of pitch with your fingering. The string can either go up or down in these little microtonal slurs. And this is like something that just my whole nervous system responds to, and it's joyous, it can be very painful too, but it's almost like when you hear someone doing it correctly, particularly on a horn, It's like, especially Roland Kirk can make these guttural sounds through his horn and his flute. Yeah. Like the last one had an extended flute passage where he's blowing into it and humming at the same time. And overtones that he's getting while he's playing. It's just, something that would take you out of the ordinary into another realm where, everything is sort of like is animated, even inanimate objects in the world. Sort of take on this new resonance when you're like in that state of mind. Yeah.
The other musician that we were considering for tonight, who you mentioned earlier, Sonny Chirac, he told me he always considered himself a horn player. He just happened to have a guitar in his hands.
Yeah.
But let me just let the folks know you're listening to WKCR FM, New York, WKCR HD. You can find us online anywhere in the world. If you got a computer, you can go to WKCR.org. It's all free, ad-free, and 89.9 FM here in New York City. And this show, Deep Focus, you can find on a podcast, also free. It's on that phone in your pocket right now. If you subscribe to Deep Focus, you'll find hundreds of past episodes, including a number of them that Gary Lucas is on. And you'll also be notified when new episodes come out. Like this one's going to go up on there in a week or so.
Great.
And
no, you can get a real education, folks, in music and culture, listening to Deep Focus with Mitch Goldman.
Wow.
Well, that's like, cut right there.
Ringing endorsement.
Put it on a cassette.
That's
on
right.
a cart.
Thank you. Oh, man.
Broadcasting from the belly of the beast at Columbia University.
This is Deep Focus, where our guest is Gary Lucas. Our topic is Roland Kirk. And we are, if you're joining us in the middle, we're at, this is really a landmark show that we're presenting. It's at the Fillmore East It's April of 71, and the Vibration Society is the opening act for Santana. For you, Gary, as a greatly experienced master of stagecraft and presenting music, what can you kind of reach into Rahsaan's mind of what it's like? Okay, I'm coming at this. I'm from another genre. Maybe people haven't heard of me. They're all excited to hear Santana, who now at this time in 71, well, gee, he's one of the guys who stole the show at Woodstock.
Yes.
The movie came out last year, and he was a big hit, and he's now like this the guy. And who am I? And what's your?
I think whatever situation that he inserted himself into or created around him, he was going to dominate the proceedings and just cut through all the can'ts and
the won't.
Yeah, and just he has such an authoritative voice as a musician that like your attention is instantly riveted on this, guy speaking through these multiple horns. And, I think he wasn't really afraid of anything or any other musician. And, the way he could just sort of commandeer the set I mentioned with Mingus at Carnegie Hall, it was like something amazing to listen to.
Yeah.
It's just like he sort of leaves everybody in the dust.
Well, he's got a great band. These are it really sounds like these are his guys. I'm guessing they must have done a lot of gigs together, or there's a real flow, it sounds to me. I'm hearing a lot of support from trombonist Dick Griffin.
Amazing.
Who they worked together a bunch, and all these guys really can go from, Dick Griffin's playing that obligato, that there was that very Ellington kind of feel, and that I don't know if it even had a name, that last piece. And Cornelia Smith on piano also has got the huge range, which every piano player I can think of that played with Roland Kirk at different times, from Ron Burton, Jackie Byard, all these guys, so many of them that have that huge vocabulary. And some of the lesser known guys, Charles McGee is not on as many records as some of these guys, and drummer Jerry Griffin, who's
really good.
Yeah, he's got the backbeat when he needs it. He's got the swing thing when he wants to go there. Henry Pearson, you hear Rahsaan Roland Kirk introduce him as Henry Pete Pearson, which he's often billed as. He was a very young guy, and I think this was one of the first gigs playing with Roland Kirk that he had. I believe he later went on and became a school teacher in Brooklyn. But I've spoken with him about the experience of being on stage and really, truly having no idea what was coming next. And if a musician was there and they had a weak point, Rahsaan was going to find it and exploit it, and you'd come back. You'd better practice before the next hit.
This is similar to many of the great shamanistic figures in jazz. I would say Roland was a larger-than-life character who knew how good he was and was not afraid to use the power of his playing to, overwhelm other people in encounters. And he was very outspoken in politically. There's a good book by a guy named Frank Kafsky.
Oh yeah,
Black Nationalism and the Revolution of Music, and he's figuring in there.
Are there any of these sidemen you want to call our attention to?
Just Joe Texador. About what I know about him, I can't really. I don't want to spill the beans, and I don't know it to be a fact. I'll say this: I was at Rite Aid down in the West Village. I lived in the West Village for many a year. And they've been struggling. The good news is, folks, apparently somebody's just bought the chain and they're back in business soon. But pretty much everything in there disappeared off the shelves in the last few weeks. It was really a weird turn where they filed for Chapter. Well, anyway, I digress. So my neighbors, I ran into two women while I was out there picking up some meds. And I said, listen, you have to tune in. I'm going to do Mitch Goldman's Deep Focus show talking about Rahsaan Roland Kirk. And one of them said, Rahsaan, I saw him play many times, and I saw him play at Newport, and I went to a party with him, and then she broke into spontaneous chanting, volunteered slavery.
Wow.
Which is the next cut up.
Yeah.
That you got queued up. Which was a great album of his that was out right around the time I saw him, I believe.
Yeah, right around the time of this Fillmore East recording.
And look, I mean, like I say, he's rated. I mean, I got to add Eric Dolphy in there.
Sure.
Who's also, kind of undersung, but was one of the best, horn players going, with an amazing ability to generate a stream of ideas.
Yes.
And just continue to play, just
also multi-replayer.
Also multi-replayer, but not, simultaneously. Now, some people have attempted to do this. Another interesting sidebar is Roland, I'm sure, benefited by his composition Serenade to a Cuckoo.
Yeah.
One of his early ones, being covered by Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
I think on the first Jethro Tull album, this was. And in reading a bit about that, Ian Anderson, the leader, said, well, it was a period where I was kind of down and out, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I heard this track. I didn't have enough money to even buy a Roland Kirk album at that point, but somebody played me the Serenade to Cuckoo. And I said, yes, I can probably get a tone like that. Blowing into the horn and humming, or, speaking into it while we play. Now, this is sort of an old idea it goes back to some great harmonica players. For instance, Sonny Boy Williamson. The second, Rice Miller.
Yeah.
Did this a lot, was sort of like, scatzing into the harmonica while playing the harmonica to produce an effect which is sort of, a combination of your vocal and the instrument at the same time. Beefheart did this a little bit, too. I don't know, what his inspiration was.
Dewey Redman comes to mind.
Yeah.
Well, so this was a period of time. This is an interesting, another sidebar. We could go down that road or not. That the whole, there was a bit of a split between the, what was called avant-garde at the time and the more mainstream players. And that was a big issue, a big topic, a big musical frontier for the forward-looking artists of extended technique, right? Reaching beyond what the instrument might have been, the received idea of what it did, and whether it's, playing outside the frets on a string instrument or prepared piano or overblowing and all this.
Extended instrumental techniques.
Yeah. And Rahsaan Roland Kirk was not of that school, but he's
he
hearing
could do
it.
anything you could possibly do.
Exactly.
With horns. He just was an absolute master of ringing sounds that were beyond human comprehension at points.
Yes. And making it musical.
Very musical.
It's always in service to the idea and the melody, and
And he's very tasteful too, because he never really hangs on any one idea, except now there was that sustained note that went on for about a minute and a half in the first thing here at the Fillmore, and that was his example of circular breathing.
Yeah.
At play. And I don't know, he did suffer 2 strokes, and he died tragically at age 42 after a second stroke.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I don't want to conjecture too much here, but it's like considering, you have to wonder what some of the, strain a lot of blowing might produce in a player over time. I hate to, ascribe it to any one thing, but it might be physically, beyond human endurance, even if you do it too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's say he meddled in in areas that most musicians are not even going to put themselves in situations. I mean, he's right out of the gut bucket tradition.
Right. That's the other amazing thing. He's doing all these things, and at the same time, he's also so clearly rooted in the earliest and poppiest and most traditional aspects of the music.
Yeah.
He truly, he does it all, and then some. Well, he is, so once again, catching you folks up if you are coming along in the middle. We're at the Fillmore East. It's April of 71, and he has the slot as the opening act for Santana. And they were
very popular.
hugely popular. Also, interestingly, an audience that was very open to sophisticated instrumental music. I'm sure Santana must have had an impact on you as a young guitarist.
I thought that their moment in that Woodstock film was where it really. But when their first album came out, I mean, that was
Soul Sacrifice,
fantastic. I mean, just to hear that, I'd hear that a lot at like fraternity mixer parties and stuff.
Then nothing
it was
better.
like, and then and it sustained itself too because he was a very forward-thinking guy who could record albums that were pretty psychedelic, spiritualistic, like with John McLaughlin.
Right.
Had an excellent duo album.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is in a day when Columbia Records, who I did work for many years as a copywriter before I went to become a full-timer in music. That's a long story, but so I saw a lot of like the development of how, instrumental music. There was a moment when I started at Black Rock up there in Midtown, mid-77. They had a whole department based on fusion music. They were really advocating, at that point by signing artists like Thijs van Leer from Focus. He'd get a solo album. Steve Kahn, who played later on Steely Dan albums. The Asia album.
Yeah.
They were, there were people up there who really just loved music, and they were like, okay, we're going to put this out. We don't expect to sell a lot of it, but we think it's important, And certainly there might be an audience out there who will like follow this. So, fusion music, as it was called at that time, had a big moment.
Yeah.
And jazz, crossover, Return to Forever, the great Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah. I don't know if I would categorize.
Well, it's like it's got a bad connotation now, fusion music, I think. And unfortunately is like sort of mediocre, middle of the road. Sorry, Creed Taylor. I mean, there was like watered down fusion music where it's sort of music-y. It's like very excellently played and produced, but maybe lacking a little bit in these.
At this juncture, I would say a lot of
edges.
that stuff is, to my mind anyway, is kind of fallen out of attention, and there's some great music that still is vibrant to me. Now, bringing it back to Rahsaan Roland Kirk, I don't know if he would be considered part of that, but here he is interfacing with it and with that audience, and I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
And we got one more piece left in this first set, and it's, as you mentioned, it's a great song. It's a title track from one of his albums around this time, and one of the most popular recordings he made, I got to figure, Volunteered Slavery. And that, unfortunately, the recording sort of fades out, but maybe we'll just continue right into what he does in the second set. Yeah. We'll make a quick pit stop and just let you know that's where we're at. But so here's the end of this first set, and I think he kept it pretty short and sweet. Those were probably actually his marching orders, being the opening act. But I got to say, I think he made the most of it. So, okay, here we go. So this is the end of this first set, Fillmore East, April 3rd, 1971, here in New York City. And we're WKCR. The show's called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. Gary Lucas here with me. And we're turning a bright, shining eye on Rahsaan Roland Kirk and his Vibration Society from the very year, the very season that, Gary, you saw this band.
I know. I still marvel that I was able to be up close for this show. Because to just sit there in front of him in his full glory was like looking at a volcano erupting.
Here it is, 50 years later, and it's still going. Music from Rahsaan Roland Kirk on WKCR.
Oh, volunteer slavery has got me on the run. Oh, volunteer slavery has got me happy. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery is something that we all know. Oh, volunteer slavery is something that we all know. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Slavery. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, oh, volunteer. Who's the heavyweight champ in the world? Who's the heavyweight champ? Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali. Oh, volunteer. Yes, he is. Slavery. Let Angela Davis out of jail. Go on and let her out. Yeah, let her out. Oh, slavery. Oh. Oh, volunteer. Oh, volunteer. Slavery. Yeah. Slavery. What is that you got in your hand? What you got in your hand there, brother? What have you got in your hand? What is it? Tell me about it. Speak up, or forever hold your peace. Speak up, or forever hold your peace. Uh-oh, don't let them get you. They ain't clapping in time. What happened to the time? Nobody knows how to clap in time. What's the matter? Everybody's clapping off time. Raise it up, raise it up. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery is something that we all know. Oh, volunteer slavery is something that we all know. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer. Oh, volunteer slavery. A slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, oh, volunteer slavery. Oh, volunteer slavery. Slavery.
That is what we have of volunteered slavery, and of that recording of Rahsaan Roland Kirk playing it was the first set at the Fillmore East, April of 1971. And boy, you could hear that. It was volunteered slavery. We heard also in there a little interpolation of a song that was rather popular at the time.
The Beatles' Hey Jude.
He managed to work that in,
Yeah.
I'm sure, and had that boogie beat going. I bet they were dancing in the aisles at Fillmore East. And so he took the band off the stage. Santana came on. And what happened next, that's a story for another radio
another
show.
deep focus.
Different radio show. But then they cleared the house. New audience came in. And Rahsaan Roland Kirk brings the Vibration Society back out to play the second set. Once again, we haven't said it for a while, so I'll tell you who's in the band. Up front with Rahsaan Roland Kirk's woodwind instruments, you've got Dick Griffin on trombone, Charles McGee on the trumpet, and the rhythm section is Cornelius Smith on piano, Henry Pete Pearson on the bass, Jerry Griffin playing the drums, and Joe Habao Texador, the hero of a young Gary Lucas, on percussion.
He was a trickster figure on the stage.
He is. He's a critical part of Rahsaan Roland Kirk's music. They were very close on stage and off, apparently.
He guided him around.
Right, yeah. He was his personal...
eyes in it? No.
But also, he's on, I think it was around this time that Root Strata, Natural Black Inventions, came out, and that's pretty much just the two of them. So he's part of the music, no doubt about it. So, okay, so we're back at the Fillmore East, and this is how the second set begins. Music from Rahsaan Roland Kirk on WKCR.
We thank you very much. We have Sania Smith on the piano. Sania Smith. On the drums, Jerry Griffin. Let's see. Bass fiddle, Henry Pete Pearson. Trombone, Dick Griffin. Charles McGee on the trumpet, Charles McGee. Joseph Texador on sound tree and tambourine, Joe Texador. My name is Rahsaan.
I hate to interrupt Rahsaan, so let me just pop in for a moment and interrupt Rahsaan and say you're listening to WKCR, and the show's called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman here. Great privilege, sitting across from Gary Lucas, guitarist, composer, band leader, raconteur tonight. And Gary, you've brought our attention to the stupendous Rahsaan Roland Kirk. And, man, he has not let us down.
No, I mean, that last, well, My Cherie Amour, of course, that's a wonderful rendition, especially the flute obligato that he plays.
And I know you, aside from loving a beautiful song, as do I, but you had an extra special reason for hoping to hear that tonight.
Yeah. Remind me what it is that we had.
You said that he played that when you...
Yeah, when I saw him, I saw a version of this ensemble, the Vibration Society, in my hometown of Syracuse, in spring, I would say, of 71.
And this is April of 71, so...
So it's not far from this date. And they just were transcendently, spectacular. And I had virtually a front row seat in this tiny club known as Jabberwocky.
Sounds like everybody had a front row seat.
Yeah, no, it was like, I saw some great music there, but this thing was something else. And he dominated the proceedings to such a degree. I have to say it was as good a show as anything I saw in my youth. And I had seen some spectacular gigs in that period, including Captain Beefheart's first show in New York, which convinced me if I ever did anything in music, I was going to play with this guy. That's how strong that show was.
Well, everybody they're great musicians. There are musicians. There are great musicians. But the thing I was going to say is that everyone who I've spoken to, and maybe it's kind of a self-selecting group who had this kind of experience, talk about this transformative experience of listening to this music. And, I mentioned earlier, I just put it up on the socials, people like Stephen Bernstein, who was a guest not long ago, and Peter Apfelbaum, who was here, both saying that I think Bernstein said it changed his molecules.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the power of the guy's music flowing out of him, in a endless stream of great ideas with a flawless technique, and execution, and at the same time having a ball up there, just blowing his brains out, stomping the floor with his feet on the real gut bucket numbers that they would execute.
I like
banging a tambourine.
Little things like we just heard him make the stage announcements. He says Henry Pete Pearson playing the bass fiddle. I like that.
That's great.
Yeah, and talks about Joseph Texador, as he says, on the sound tree, which you made reference to.
Oh no, it was this huge pole. It was like a rhythm stick that he would shake. It had myriad bells and whistles, and there were little toys on there. You'd press a button of one of these toys, and you'd hear a cackle like So it was like a one-man joke shop. And he was an integral part of the band. He was like a sideman to Rahsaan. But Rahsaan was like right in the center, just wailing, playing the hell out of these horns.
And I love the fact
Some of his harmonies, I just want to mention.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Like if you listen to The Inflated Tear, in fact, there's quite a good YouTube clip of him playing this in Prague. I believe it's from the late 60s. He did a European tour, and they wound up playing there. A city near and dear to my heart. When you hear the harmonies that he's worked out with the three horns going at once and the fingering with both hands, you can hear a little bit of like what, at the same time contemporaneous to him, Zappa did on an album like Hot Rats, for instance, Peaches and Regalia. A lot of it sounds like Roland Kirk harmonies in the woodwind writing and the overdubs. And it's like, you could tell he had a big influence.
I'm glad you say that because,
like
it's funny. Another thing that we've all seen, I don't mean to take anything away from anybody, especially something they worked very hard to do, but you'll see somebody, a saxophonist, and do their solo, and then they come to that part. Now I'm going to play two horns at once. You've never seen that.
No.
And they almost never do what Rahsaan did.
No.
There's the visual wow factor of like, look what I can do. But if you listen to what Rahsaan's doing when he does that.
It's like Bulgarian folk music or something. It's like very, intricate harmonies that he's worked out, but it's got a whole tonality about it with his control and then the fingering going on at the same time. And here's a guy who continued to play. He had two strokes. After his first stroke, he pulled himself together, as you pointed out, and he reduced it to like two horns going at once.
And he only had use of one hand.
One hand, but he was able to still do amazing things.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, a musician, an artist like that really doesn't pass through the universe often, and really, take over things. I mean, in such a way.
Yeah, he was the man. There's no doubt about it.
Really.
Nobody else could quite do what he could do, and we're getting to hear him. He's playing for this is kind of ground zero for the music scene right then. The Fillmore East is the gathering place of the hippies, the love generation. It's where all of the bands of that moment are playing, and you could group a lot of them as of being of a somewhat narrow genre, and some of that music holds up, maybe some of it doesn't. But the man who put all that together, Bill Graham, had a conviction about putting music on the bill that he thought was deserving, whether it had the audience size or not.
Yes, Bill Graham had great programming instincts.
Well, he opened the door to a lot of musicians,
stuff.
Including
in that same year. I'm trying to think. It has to be 71, maybe 72. I saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer's first gig in New York with a young band called Curved Air. Had a great player, Francis Monkman, on violin, who later was in Roxy Music. And that was one of the first times I'd been to the Fillmore. And I just thought, okay, look, that was pretty spectacular. I was a fan of The Nice, which was also sort of like a late 60s psychedelic, you could say, on the cusp of fusion that featured Keith Emerson,
right.
An incredible keyboard player.
Yeah.
And so Bill Graham would put all sorts of combinations of great music together.
Created this opportunity for Rahsaan Roland Kirk. And I have to say, these two sets, it sounds like his music. I've never heard a live set that sounds quite like this. I hear in this that he's playing to a room full of a couple of thousand young people as opposed to what might be his sit-down audience at a more conventional venue. And in fact, in a short bit, we're going to get to another set recorded on where he's headlining in Europe, and you'll hear a very different vibe. Equally strong, equally original, but I think he is reaching out to the last seat in the last row. Nobody's getting out of this room without experiencing the spirit of Rahsaan Roland Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
It
was just a titanic force.
We are WKCR FM New York, WKCR HD here in New York City. You could find us at 89.9 FM and all around the world at WKCR.org. And if you're a fan of this program, you can find us on the phone in your pocket. It's a podcast that is free, ad-free, free, no nothing. I don't even have a tip cup. You can swing by my house and buy me a slice of pizza maybe.
Yeah.
But other than that...
Just stay off the pepperoni, guys.
That's right.
I had a very bad experience once.
But,
Anthony Braxton's Club.
Find
Okay,
Deep...
no, that's another story.
Oh, man. I'll give you the... you know what else you could do? Deep Focus. You could follow us on Instagram. You should subscribe, and you'll never hit you up for anything, but you'll get a notification when new episodes go up, like this one. You'll find hundreds of other episodes you can listen to. And you can also follow us along on Instagram. We are Deep Focus Podcast, deep_focus_podcast on Instagram. And we get some great conversations going there. I try to find original photos and always give credit to who owns and created them, and little tales we tell. And you can find folks who like the music you like. And so follow along on Deep Focus. And so tonight, Gary Lucas here in the studio.
I'm honored to be here with my knowledge brother friend, Mitch Goldman.
And Rahsaan Roland Kirk. We got a little bit left, just a few little magic moments at the Fillmore East on this bill opening up for Carlos Santana. Gary, anything else you want to call our attention to?
Let's see. Okay, well, at the end, you're going to hear another rendition of Volunteered Slavery.
I think he knew when he had a hit on his hands.
Yeah, which I don't know if you heard this, you listening audience out there. But
oh, man. Okay, so I'll run down the band one more time. Up front, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, of course, on the woodwinds. It's Charles McGee on trumpet, Dick Griffin. I love Dick Griffin's playing on trombone. And rhythm section, Cornelia Smith, piano, Henry Pete Pearson on the bass fiddle, Jerry Griffin on the drums, Joe Habau, Joseph Texador, percussion there at the Fillmore East. April 71, we are WKCR, live music from Rahsaan Roland Kirk and the Vibration Society. Deep Focus, May 13th, 2024. Gary Lucas in the hot seat with me up at the WKCR studios for a Deep Focus on Rahsaan Roland Kirk. Great stories, and the rest of that set and some more stuff coming your way at part 3. So go check that out. But first, I just want to thank everybody who has joined us recently as a regular listener, as a subscriber, and folks like Jonathan got a new subscriber. Monroe Bagger joined us recently. Luke joined us recently. So glad having you guys along. And I'm just looking at a little information here about where our subscribers are coming from. About 80% of you guys are here in the U.S., but second most popular country, can you guess? All right, I'll tell you. UK, followed by Australia, followed by Canada. You guys are Canada. Come on along. Falling behind. Sweden, first non-primary English-speaking country. So far, I've been to all these countries. Mexico comes next. Germany, not a surprise. I know a lot of fandom for this music there. Norway, Netherlands. I've still been to every one of these countries. A lot of the time on tour with musicians. Coming next, Iran, then India, Denmark, followed by Italy, Switzerland, Japan, all right. Another popular touring destination that I've been to. Taiwan, Belgium, France, Spain, Finland, Portugal. Love all you guys. Everybody. You all count. Vietnam, Bulgaria, Israel, Singapore, Russia, New Zealand, United Arab Emirates. Everybody's welcome. We've got a big tent. It's Deep Focus. There's room for all. Ireland, Hong Kong, Brazil, Indonesia, Lithuania, Turkey, Romania, Poland, Philippines. Wow. I can't tell you. It means a whole lot knowing that you're following along and listening and getting into it with us. Malaysia, Jamaica, Sri Lanka, Kazakhstan, Dominican Republic, Czech Republic, Cyprus, Chile, Argentina, South Africa. And I think that's 47 countries right there, something like that. And there's more. And so, yeah, please do join up, and you can subscribe, and you'll always be notified when new programs come along. You can also listen at the website. You can just go and pick up any episode there. The hosting site is mitchgoldman.podbean.com. But I know there's folks finding us on Apple Podcasts, on Safari, on Spotify, Pocket Cast. I don't even know that one. Overcast, Google Chrome, Castbox, Downcast, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Chromecast, Google Podcasts, Podcast Republic. I know that one. That's a good one. Edge, Firefox, Google Nest Hub, Android Player, iTunes, Music Bee. Holy smokes. Sonos, Dogcatcher, Facebook. Facebook? I didn't even know we had a presence on Facebook. Alexa-enabled devices. This is very cool. I get all this data, and the main thing about it is that I see you. I definitely appreciate you being along with us. We have over 350 episodes up now. You can search for past episodes. We have done Rahsaan Roland Kirk before, so if you're getting into that, go out and find yourself some of his commercially released music, but also you can listen to more Deep Focus podcasts on him. You can find out more about those past episodes and about Deep Focus, about me, at mitchgoldman.com, mitchgoldman.com, mitchgoldman. Click on the podcasts page. I think you'll find a Google search bar there, and it should pull up past episodes. If you put in a search term, if you put in, what else is Gary Lucas done a spot on? Put in Gary Lucas, and you'll find out who else has done a Rahsaan Roland Kirk show. Put it in there, and you'll find out at mitchgoldman.com/podcasts. You can also follow us along on Instagram. It's Deep Focus Podcast, deep_focus_podcast on Instagram, and get into some cool stuff there. We always let you know what's coming next on the show. So lots of ways to follow along, and it's all free. Everything's free, not even an advertisement, not even a tip cup or a Patreon or anything like that. We're giving it away, and it's all yours. And we're just really, really glad that you're coming along for the ride. It's, yeah. And you can email us. It's deepfocusnow@gmail.com. All right. Well, yes, you're part of the show. And I'll see you over at part 3. Once again, May 13th, 2024, Gary Lucas on the topic of Rahsaan Roland Kirk.